Sometimes I feel like I'm just existing. I'm not really living. I'm only watching the time slip away. I've forgotten who I am in you. I'm not who I'm meant to be, no, no. I'm drifting farther away from my destiny.
Hello, I'm Gail Nordskog, and you're watching A Heart of Purpose. I have a guest with me. It's our second show here, Nita Hanson. She is with a ministry called God's Hidden Treasure. And Nita, thank you for hanging around and allowing us to continue our conversation. She has so much to share that we decided to do a second half-hour show here. We were talking about adoptions in our last show. And you said it can be done, but you had a special story that you wanted to share about a particular child.
Yes, I had a little boy that I met. He was about 3 months old, and he was the cutest thing I ever saw. And a lot of the children in the baby house were handicapped, so they still swaddle the children. And when no one's looking, I unswaddled them. And I saw that he was missing half of his leg and had just a fleshy appendage for a foot. And I just fell in love with him. And he claimed me as his. And if I looked at any of the other children, he would cry and throw a fit. His name is Dima. And so we were very close. And I wanted to get him help. And I actually found his parents and tried to get them to take him, and they wouldn't. Somewhere down the road, we had a meeting with Shriners Hospital, and they were willing to work with us. And we got permission in Ukraine to bring him, and he came, and they amputated the little fleshy appendage and fitted him with prosthesis, and he took his first steps. That was very touching, and he's now 13 years old. I was praying that while he was in the States he would be adopted, not here, but that someone would fall in love with him, and they did. And they came back to Ukraine. He was adopted. So I'd like to tell you
So somebody from the United States actually adopted this
And as God would have it, they were living in Portland. There's a Shriners Hospital in Portland. We just transferred his records up there. And this little boy, when he started school, he came in shorts one day because it was really hot, and he saw the kids looking at his prosthesis. So this little 6-year-old boy at recess, he says to the kids, "Everybody over here, sit down. Now listen and listen good, because I'm only going to do this once." He took his prosthesis off. He said, "This is what I look like without my legs. Put them back on. This is how I put them on. You got any questions? Okay, go play."
That's how he handled that. That's adorable.
Yeah,
and so he's now living in the United States
in Portland,
because of this opportunity that he had to be taken care of at the Shriners.
His adoptive father wants to bring him back to Ukraine so he can see where he came from.
Now, what about the birth parents? Are they totally uninterested in?
They're not.
In him.
I was willing to be the go-between. They wanted, Sue and Barry wanted to stay in touch for Dima's sake. Never heard a thing from them.
That's probably better in the long run.
Probably.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what other ministries would you like to share about? Because you're doing so much.
Yeah. I forget what all we're doing. But I would kind of like to share, if I could, how we ended up with our name.
I would like that, yeah.
When I first started trying to form an organization, everyone kept saying to me, "You got to name it." And I said, "I'm not going to name it. God has to name it." And one morning in prayer, he gave me the name God's Hidden Treasures. And several years later, I found a stone. It's called a geode. And if you look at this, it's just a plain, ugly rock. And if you were out for a walk, you would never pick it up and collect it. But if you were wise enough to take it and you look at the inside and you see the beauty inside, and that so fits with God's message of God's hidden treasures, because God looks at the inside.
And I think it's human nature to look at the outside and judge a person by the outside, but it's really what's in the heart that matters. I think that's a great analogy.
And I use it a lot over there because they have such a poor image of themselves. Say, "See, this is how God sees you."
You know, I think during our break we were talking a little bit about the darkness over there. And you were kind of referring to literal darkness as well as a spiritual darkness. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, everything in Ukraine just kind of appears dark. I'm spiritually sensitive enough to really actually almost see it sometimes, and it's very oppressive. It's just like walking in a swamp sometimes. Kind of manifests itself as hopelessness, but everything is dark. I mean, you go into someone's flat, and you'll sit there until you're peering at each other, and they finally will turn the light on. Even their cars, the lights are not so bright as they are here. And you go in a hospital, and you walk down the corridor, and there may be one light there. So it's like the spiritual darkness manifests itself in the physical also.
That's an interesting insight.
And people
that you
they
saw.
don't like to look you in the eye, and we have what we call the Russian freeze. But you know, I always try to look at people, and I try to catch their eyes, and I give them a smile, and I'll say "Здравствуйте," that means hello, and some of them will get a little disconcerted and smile back. Some just walk right by you.
Now, you said the people there are very well educated.
Very well educated.
But there is not the work for them? Is that why there's hopelessness?
Well, when the walls went down, I think people in the West just figured, oh, they're free now. Everything's going to be wonderful. They've never been free. They have 1,000+ year history of 5% ruling and 95%. Somebody always saying, this is what you're going to do. We're going to take care of you. So when the walls fell down, how were they supposed to know what to do? So literally, a lot of the communists just changed hats and became the mafia. Mafia controls the country. A lot of dishonesty. So I think the ordinary person just feels like, what can I do? I have no power to do anything. And it's all dishonest anyway, so why should I even try?
Well, what is like an average day for a healthy, educated person in the Ukraine like? What is their income like? What is the lifestyle like?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Gail. It's not simple. Someone may have an official job, but maybe in their official job they don't get paid, so they never go there. So they might have several unofficial jobs. And very few people report their salaries, or if their salaries are reported, it's not really usually the truth of what's really they're really earning. So to describe an official day is really difficult. You know, if it was a school teacher, now I could tell you a school teacher goes to class, you know, they have their classes just like we do here, and they're very poorly paid, so a lot of them have to work outside the system in order to live. Businesses struggle because the government puts so many requirements on you, it makes it almost impossible to be honest. And so everybody justifies their dishonesty because the government's not honest. I try to do everything honestly. We report everybody's salary, the real one. We pay all the taxes. We receive stuff through customs. We do everything according to the book, everything. So I want to set an example that you can be honest and prosper.
I just find it interesting too, because you were even sharing at one point that even the churches and the church people can be somewhat dishonest over there, because they're just so used to saying, well, they're being dishonest to you, so
I've actually been told that it's okay for you to be dishonest because the government's not dishonest, and you have to function in the country. So I'm sorry to say, even a lot of mission do not report their employees.
That must be hard. They must look at you like, this woman's a troublemaker.
Well, it is hard. And, you know, I was on a trip down to Kherson once doing a wheelchair distribution and working with a pastor. And at the end of the day, we were all exhausted. We'd had about a 14-hour day. And we just started sharing some things. And I shared that the hardest thing for me in Ukraine was dishonesty. And the pastor's like, oh, you Americans, you just don't understand. I said, I live here. I live the same as you do. I understand. And I don't do dishonest things. So he told me about a conference of pastors, and that one of the pastors stood up and said, I have a problem. Can I share it with you and ask for help? And the problem was, one of his parishioners came to him and said, I'm stealing from my employer. She worked on a collective farm. She was stealing food. And I'm stealing because they don't pay me. What should I tell her? Well, my heart just sank first because this pastor had to ask what to tell her. And the second was, the guy I was working with said, I stood up and said, tell her to steal. They're not doing right. And I said, how could you say that? And he said, well, you just don't understand, you're American. And I said, I bring shipments here. I have an organization here. I don't pay bribes. I don't do anything dishonest.
A lot of corruption.
A lot of corruption.
Yeah.
Very painful to see.
Yeah. Also, the churches, well, you have a vision to see the churches work together, and
Yes.
they're not doing that at this point.
Most of the churches in Ukraine dislike each other intensely. And for instance, let's say I'm a Baptist and I have this vision to do something, and I think, oh, I need help. So I go to the Orthodox Church. I share with them. They say, I'm not going to work with you. You're not Christian. But on the other hand, if the Orthodox guy came to the Baptist, he would do the same. You're not Christian. I won't work with you. And that's what they really say to each other. But I try to make them work together. We do a picnic once a year for the handicapped, and we have different churches helping us. This year we had 6 different denominations working side by side for that day. I have
That's the way it should be.
The volunteer program is different churches, and they work together when they're with me. So, you can only just do what you can do in your little sphere, but don't give up. Don't be discouraged. If God said to do it, do it. Let Him handle the problem.
Well, it seems like you've been doing that all along.
Yeah.
Just, just trusting God for everything that you're doing, and doors just seem to have been opening up, and amazing what you're doing.
I mean, I have a very simple faith, and my faith is either God's who He says He is or He's not, and there's no in between. And if He tells me to do something, then the results don't matter. My job is just to do what He said to do. And I'm very blessed that I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I really don't. A lot of people think I'm being funny. I don't know how to start an organization. I don't know how to work with handicapped people. I don't know how to work with orphans, but God does. And He's just step by step by step put everything in place. So I just hang on to Him.
I think that's the right one to be hanging on to. It sounds like you've accomplished so much, co-laboring with God in a sense, trying to help these people to just be set free physically, emotionally, spiritually. You have a heart to do something about a village. Is that what were you talking about there?
Oh, well, my first year in Ukraine back in 1996, God gave me a dream to build a village for the children. And not an orphanage. I mean, we have enough orphanages in Ukraine. But to have homes with house parents who would commit to them just like you do to your kids. Mm-hmm. And it's not okay, you can come and stay with us for a while and then you're gone. It's no, you're a part of our lives forever. So individual homes, and the house parents with the commitment, and that each house parent gets to pick what kind of children they want to have. And then we would also have a school for the disabled, and I'm hoping a manufacturing site, because someday I want to make our own wheelchairs in country instead of having to depend on getting them from other places. And then I have a dream to have 4 group homes for handicapped adult orphans, because just like with the kids that are mentally retarded, if you are disabled and your parents give you away, you will be in an institution until you die.
I can't even imagine.
So it's just like you don't have an arm, so that's vidanya, goodbye.
You're not planning on leaving anytime soon then, are you?
No.
Sounds like you are really rooted and grounded there in the Ukraine.
I really have 2 countries now. I mean, I'm American, but I'm also Ukrainian. And I love both sides deeply, and they're so different.